Most people think the way to get something is to push harder. Push the deal, push the relationship, push the sale, push the conversation. Just lean in, apply pressure, don't let go. And sometimes that works. But a lot of the time, the harder you push, the faster it slips away. You've felt this before. You text someone you like, they reply, things are fine. Then you start replying faster, longer messages, more energy. You lean in. Suddenly, they lean back. Not because you did something wrong, not because they hate you, just because pressure creates resistance. It's physics, it's psychology, it's human nature. When people feel chased, they instinctively protect space. When people feel controlled, they push back. When people feel cornered, they look for exits. And that's where today's idea starts. Sometimes, if you want to catch something, you have to stop chasing it. That sounds backwards, almost passive, almost weak. It's not. It's control through restraint. Think about negotiations. If you walk into a room desperate to close the deal, the other side smells it immediately. They slow down. They test you. They squeeze price. They ask for more concessions. Because urgency signals imbalance. But when you're calm, when you're willing to walk away, when you say, no worries, take your time, and you actually mean it, the dynamic shifts. Now they're wondering if they might lose you. And that subtle shift, that's power. This isn't manipulation, it's not playing games, it's understanding momentum. Human interaction runs on emotional momentum. When one side pushes too hard, the other side instinctively stabilizes the scale. You see this in sales all the time. The overeager salesperson talks too much, over-explains, fills every silence. The customer starts defending their wallet. But the relaxed salesperson, the one who explains clearly and then sits back, lets silence breathe. That person closes more deals. Why? Because people don't like being forced, but they do like choosing. There's a massive difference between being pulled and deciding to step forward. And here's the deeper layer. People value what they work for. If something feels too easy to obtain, its perceived value drops. If it feels slightly out of reach, value rises. Scarcity isn't just about supply, it's about access. When you're constantly available, constantly accommodating, constantly proving yourself, you lower perceived scarcity. When you're steady but not overextending, present but not chasing, you create space. And space creates desire. Look at high-end brands. They don't beg customers, they don't chase buyers down the street. They don't scream discounts every 5 minutes. They limit supply, they control access, they maintain posture. That posture signals value. Now bring this back to everyday life. Imagine arguing with someone. You try to win every point, you interrupt, you push your logic harder and harder. They dig in. But if you pause, if you say, okay, I hear you, if you stop trying to win the moment, often they soften. Because the fight energy drops. When pressure drops, defenses drop. This principle shows up everywhere. Parents with teenagers, managers with employees, creators with audiences, founders with investors. Push too aggressively, and the other side creates distance. Hold steady, even step back, and sometimes they lean toward you. But here's where people misunderstand this idea. It's not about pretending not to care. You can't fake detachment. People feel it. If you step back while internally panicking, your tone gives you away. Your body language leaks urgency. Your follow-up messages betray anxiety. The power comes from genuine stability. It's not, I don't care. It's, I'm okay either way. That emotional independence changes everything. Because when you don't need the outcome, you stop overcorrecting your behavior to secure it. And ironically, that makes the outcome more likely. There's a quiet confidence in restraint. Restraint says, I trust timing. Restraint says, I don't need to force this. Restraint says, if it's right, it will move. Now, don't get this twisted. This doesn't mean you never pursue. It doesn't mean you never initiate. It doesn't mean you become passive. Action matters, but chasing from anxiety, that's different. There's a difference between initiative and desperation. Initiative is clean, desperation is loud, and people respond to those two energies very differently. Let me give you a simple example. You send a proposal, no response for 2 days. Option 1, you send 3 follow-ups. Just checking in, wanted to bump this. Any updates? The tone slowly gets tighter. Option 2, you send 1 calm follow-up. Clear, professional. Then you let it sit. Which one preserves leverage? The second one, because you're not signaling that your entire world depends on their reply. And here's something most people don't want to admit. When someone senses you need something from them more than they need something from you, the balance shifts. So sometimes the smartest move isn't tightening your grip, it's loosening it. Not to lose, not to give up, but to allow movement. Think of holding water in your hands. If you squeeze too hard, it escapes. If you cup gently, it stays. This principle is subtle. It requires emotional discipline. It requires patience. And it absolutely requires self-control. Because your instinct will scream, do something, fix it, push. But sometimes doing less creates more. Sometimes silence speaks louder than explanation. Sometimes stepping back invites someone to step forward. And that's where we begin. Not with tricks, not with tactics, but with understanding a simple human truth. The harder you chase, the faster it runs. And the moment you stop chasing, that's often when it turns around.
Now let's talk about something more uncomfortable. Why does stepping back actually work? Because humans hate losing more than they love gaining. This is basic psychology. Loss hits harder than gain feels good. If I offer you $100, that feels nice. If I take $100 from you, that feels twice as intense. So when you chase someone, whether it's a client, a partner, an audience, you remove the possibility of loss from their side. They're not afraid of losing you. You're afraid of losing them. And that imbalance changes behavior. But the moment you stop pushing, now there's uncertainty. Now there's a tiny question in their head. Wait, are they pulling back? Are they moving on? Is this opportunity going away? And uncertainty creates attention. Attention creates value. Let's make this concrete. You've probably had this happen. You're talking to someone casually, you're not fully invested. Then, suddenly, they get busy. They stop responding as quickly. They seem less available. Nothing dramatic, just a shift. And now you notice them more. Why? Because your brain just detected potential loss. We are wired to react to change in availability. Consistency feels safe. Reduced access feels scarce, and scarcity triggers desire. But here's the important thing. This only works if the value was already there. If someone doesn't care at all, stepping back doesn't magically create attraction. It only amplifies existing interest. This isn't about manufacturing desire out of thin air. It's about letting the other side feel the weight of their own interest. When you constantly fill every gap, you don't give them space to feel anything. When you immediately answer every doubt, they don't have to process. When you solve every tension, they don't experience contrast. And contrast is powerful. Think about music. If it's loud all the time, it's noise. The quiet moments make the loud moments hit harder. Human interaction works the same way. Now, let's talk about business. Imagine you're selling something and the buyer says, "I'm not sure." Most people panic here. They start discounting, over-explaining, adding bonuses, throwing in extras. But what happens if you calmly say, "That makes sense. It's an important decision. Take your time." And then you stop talking. You didn't withdraw value. You didn't chase approval. You didn't lower your price. You created space. And in that space, the buyer has to confront their own hesitation. Sometimes they talk themselves into the purchase. Sometimes they come back because they don't want to miss it. Sometimes they walk away, and that's fine too. Here's the truth most people avoid. If someone only stays because you pressured them, they were never really yours. Pressure creates fragile wins. Calm detachment creates durable ones. Now let's address something subtle. Stepping back isn't dramatic. It's not disappearing for 3 months. It's not cold silence. It's not emotional punishment. That's ego. Real restraint is smooth. It looks like not over-texting, not interrupting silence, not forcing a decision, not over-justifying your worth. It's strength without noise. And here's another layer. When you chase, you reveal your fear. Fear of losing, fear of not being chosen, fear of not being enough. And people react to that fear, even if they can't articulate it. But when you're steady, when you're okay either way, you transmit stability. Stability feels safe. Safety builds trust. And trust is what actually holds things together long-term. Let's zoom out. Why do luxury brands limit access? Why do exclusive clubs have waiting lists? Why do creators who don't overshare often feel more magnetic? Because controlled availability signals confidence. It says, I'm not scrambling. And scrambling energy repels. You can feel it in conversations. The person who needs validation drains the room. The person who's grounded attracts it. This isn't about pretending to be aloof. It's about building a life full enough that you don't cling. When you have options, you don't chase. When you have purpose, you don't beg. When you have self-respect, you don't overextend. And that internal shift changes how others respond. Now, here's the catch. This approach requires emotional tolerance. You have to be able to sit with uncertainty. You have to handle not knowing. You have to resist the urge to close the loop immediately. That's uncomfortable. Most people would rather act than wait, even if the action weakens their position. But sometimes the strongest move is not reacting. Silence can be leverage. Stillness can be leverage. Patience can be leverage. And here's something powerful. When you stop chasing, you start observing. You see who moves towards you without pressure. You see who values you without reminders. You see who steps up on their own. That information is priceless, because now you're not forcing connection, you're filtering it. And filtering is more powerful than convincing. Convincing tries to change minds. Filtering reveals truth. So stepping back isn't about surrender. It's about letting reality show itself. And that shift from control to clarity changes the game entirely.
All right, now we need to talk about something people usually skip. Because this idea, stepping back instead of chasing, sounds powerful, but it can backfire if you don't understand timing. Part 3 is about when this works and when it absolutely doesn't. Let's be honest, if there's no interest to begin with, pulling back does nothing. If someone isn't invested at all, your silence won't suddenly make you mysterious. It'll just make you irrelevant. That's the first rule. This only works when there's already tension, already curiosity, already engagement. If there's nothing there, there's nothing to amplify. Think of it like fire. If there's a spark, removing oxygen changes the flame. If there's no spark, removing oxygen does nothing. So before stepping back, ask yourself, was there momentum? Were they responding, engaging, showing interest? If yes, space can shift the dynamic. If no, space just confirms distance. Now let's talk about another mistake. Some people use stepping back as passive aggression. They get upset, they feel insecure, so they withdraw to punish. That's not strength. That's emotional reaction disguised as strategy, and people feel the difference instantly. Real restraint feels calm. Punishment feels sharp. When you step back from ego, your energy stays clean. When you step back to provoke, your energy turns tense, and tension leaks. You don't need to say it, people feel it. Now, here's another important layer: urgency situations. If there's a deadline,
If there's real-time sensitivity, if action is required, that's not the moment to test patience. If your house is on fire, you don't step back. If a contract expires tomorrow, you don't play quiet. This approach works best in psychological dynamics, not emergency scenarios. It works in attraction, in negotiation, in influence, in social positioning. It doesn't work in crisis management. Big difference. Let's talk about ego. A lot of chasing isn't about the goal, it's about validation. You don't want the deal, you want to win. You don't want the person, you want to be chosen. You don't want the opportunity, you want proof. And when ego drives action, stepping back feels impossible because ego hates losing. Ego wants resolution now. But here's the truth. Sometimes stepping back reveals that you didn't actually want it. You just didn't want to lose. That realization alone can change your life. Now let's flip perspective. What happens when someone uses this on you? You felt it. You're casually talking to someone, everything is smooth. Then they slow down. They're still polite, still warm, but not leaning forward anymore. And suddenly you feel a shift. You start analyzing. You start wondering. You start leaning forward. Nothing aggressive happened, just less availability. That's the power of contrast. We don't notice constant energy, we notice change. And when availability decreases slightly, not dramatically, just subtly, attention increases. But here's the danger. If you overdo it, you kill momentum completely. If you withdraw too far, too long, or too coldly, the other side moves on. This isn't about disappearing, it's about recalibrating pressure. Think of it like adjusting volume, not muting the sound. Lower the intensity, keep presence, remove pressure. That balance is everything. Now here's something most people miss. Stepping back also tests your own stability. Can you handle silence? Can you handle not knowing? Can you handle waiting without spiraling? If not, you'll sabotage it. You'll send that extra message. You'll over-explain. You'll try to fix what wasn't broken. And once you reveal that impatience, the dynamic shifts again. Because patience communicates strength, impatience communicates need, and need reduces leverage. But let's be clear, this isn't about playing power games in every interaction. If you genuinely care about someone, communicate. If you value clarity, speak. If something matters deeply, express it. This principle isn't a replacement for honesty. It's a correction for over-pursuit. There's a huge difference. Over-pursuit comes from fear. Honest expression comes from grounded confidence. One chases, one offers. And here's the cleanest way to know which energy you're operating from. If they say no, are you okay? If the deal falls through, are you stable? If they choose someone else, does your identity collapse? If the answer is yes, you're chasing from fear. If the answer is no, you're operating from strength. Stepping back only works when you're genuinely okay with outcomes, because people sense emotional attachment to results, and attachment creates tension. Detachment creates flow. So before you use this idea anywhere, relationships, business, social circles, check your foundation. Are you steady, or are you just pretending to be steady while panicking inside? Because the inside always leaks outside, and this whole concept depends on internal control first. Not silence, not distance, not delay, control. That's what makes the difference.
All right, now we get to the part most people never think about. Up to now, we've talked about psychology, timing, and emotional control. But next is about something deeper. Why stepping back doesn't just change other people, it changes you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. When you stop chasing, you start seeing clearly. And clarity can be brutal. When you're constantly pushing, texting, convincing, explaining, adjusting, you're actively shaping the interaction. You're influencing it, steering it, holding it together. But when you step back, you remove your force from the equation, and what remains is the truth of the situation. Do they move closer? Do they stay steady? Or do they drift away?
That information is priceless because now you're not guessing who values you, you're observing it. Let's say you're always the one initiating plans, always the one calling, always the one keeping the connection alive. You stop for a bit. What happens? If nothing happens, that tells you something. If they reach out, that tells you something else. Chasing hides reality. Space reveals it. And that's uncomfortable because sometimes we prefer the illusion. We'd rather believe they're just busy than face the possibility that we were the only one investing. But this principle forces honesty. It forces you to measure interest by action, not words. And that shift alone can save years of wasted energy. Now let's talk about identity. When you're constantly pursuing validation, whether in dating, business, or social circles, your identity becomes outcome dependent. If they reply, you feel good. If they delay, you feel anxious. If they approve, you feel worthy. If they reject, you feel small. That's unstable. Stepping back builds something stronger. It forces you to find your center outside of other people's reactions. When you don't immediately react to every shift, you build emotional muscle. When you don't scrabble to fix silence, you build patience. When you don't beg for reassurance, you build self-trust. And that internal stability is magnetic, because most people are reactive. They answer anxiety with more anxiety. They answer pressure with more pressure. But when someone remains steady, especially in uncertainty, it stands out. Think about leadership. The strongest leaders in a tense moment aren't the loudest, they're the calmest. They don't panic publicly. They don't overcorrect. They assess, they pause, they choose. That's power. And stepping back is a small-scale version of that leadership energy. It says, I don't need to react instantly. It says, I trust my position. It says, I'm not afraid of space. Now let's look at attraction dynamics again. When someone feels like they have to constantly prove themselves to you, they get tired. When someone feels like they constantly need your approval, they feel small. But when you create space, you allow them to invest. And investment creates attachment. If you're always over-giving, attention, reassurance, effort, you remove the other person's opportunity to contribute. And humans bond through contribution. We value what we put effort into. So when you stop overextending, you allow balance. And balance builds stronger connections than intensity ever will. Now, here's a key distinction. Stepping back isn't coldness. It's not emotional shutdown. It's not detachment from care. You can still be warm, still kind, still engaged, but you're not gripping. You're not clinging. You're not overcorrecting every wobble. You're grounded. And grounded energy feels safe. Here's another angle most people don't notice. When you stop chasing, you free up mental bandwidth. Think about how much energy goes into analyzing replies, replaying conversations, drafting perfect follow-ups, checking notifications. It's exhausting. Stepping back cuts that noise. You send the message, you make the offer, you show interest, then you live your life. That shift alone increases your attractiveness, not because you're playing a role, but because you're genuinely less needy. And neediness isn't about wanting something, it's about needing it to validate you. Once you separate those two, everything changes. You can want deeply, you can pursue confidently, but you're not collapsing emotionally if it doesn't work out. And that's where the real strength lives. Here's something almost no one says out loud. Sometimes stepping back shows you that you were chasing something beneath your level. Not in an arrogant way, just in alignment. You were trying to convince someone who wasn't aligned. You were forcing an opportunity that didn't fit. You were pushing for something that required too much persuasion. And when you stop pushing, you realize the right things don't require that much force. They move more naturally. They respond more smoothly. They don't require constant pressure to stay alive. That realization alone can upgrade your entire standard. Because instead of asking, how do I get them? You start asking, do they move towards me too? And that question flips the dynamic permanently. Now, you're not chasing, you're choosing. And choosing feels very different. That's the deeper transformation here. It's not about tactics, it's about posture. When you stop gripping outcomes, you stop negotiating your worth. And once that happens, the energy around you changes. Not loudly, not dramatically, but noticeably. And people respond to that shift, whether they realize why or not.
All right, let's land this properly. We've talked about pressure, we've talked about timing, we've talked about emotional control, we've talked about identity. Now it is simple. How do you actually live this without turning into some weird, detached robot? Because here's the danger. People here step back and they go extreme. They disappear, they play cold, they act uninterested, they try to manufacture mystery. That's not strength. That's insecurity wearing a costume. Real restraint is subtle. It's clean. It doesn't feel like a tactic. It feels like stability. So what does that look like in real life? First, slow your reactions. Not your care, not your warmth, just your reactions. If someone takes 3 hours to respond, you don't immediately spiral. If a deal pauses, you don't panic send 5 follow-ups. If someone seems slightly distant, you don't chase reassurance. You breathe. You let things unfold. That pause alone changes your energy. Second, match effort, don't exceed it wildly. If someone invests, invest back. If someone pulls slightly, don't sprint forward to compensate. Balance creates respect. Overcompensation creates imbalance, and imbalance creates pressure. Third, build a life that doesn't revolve around one outcome. This is the part nobody wants to hear. If one person, one deal, one opportunity has the power to destabilize your entire mood, you're over-invested. When your world is full, work, fitness, hobbies, friends, projects, you naturally stop gripping so hard because your identity isn't hanging on one thread. That's not detachment. That's diversification. And diversification creates calm. Fourth, say less when you're emotional. Most over-chasing happens in emotional spikes. You feel uncertain, you feel ignored, you feel unchosen. So you react, you explain more, you confess more, you try to lock it down. Instead, wait. Emotion settles. Clarity returns. You realize half the panic wasn't real. Silence protects your position. Fifth, be willing to lose. This is the hardest one. If you are not genuinely willing to let something go, you will unconsciously chase it. Your tone will tighten, your timing will shift, your energy will reveal attachment. Power comes from being okay either way, not pretending, not bluffing, actually okay. And here's the paradox. When you're okay losing something, you behave in a way that makes losing less likely because you're not pressuring it, you're not suffocating it, you're not gripping it to death. Let's zoom out one last time. Why does this principle work across relationships, business, influence, even leadership? Because humans want autonomy. We want to feel like we chose. We don't want to feel cornered. We don't want to feel forced. And when someone removes pressure, we relax. When we relax, we lean in. It's that simple. But here's the part I really want you to think about. Stepping back isn't about controlling other people. It's about controlling yourself, your impulses, your fear, your need for immediate certainty. When you master that, everything changes, because most people never do. They live in reaction mode. Text, react. Delay, panic. Silence, overthink. You don't have to live like that. You can move first when it makes sense. You can express interest confidently. You can pursue with clarity. But once you've done your part, you release. You don't grip. You don't chase shadows. You let reality respond. And reality will always tell you the truth if you stop interrupting it. Sometimes the truth is that they weren't that interested. Good. Now you know. Sometimes the truth is that they lean toward you when you stop leaning so hard. Good. Now you see the dynamic clearly. Either way, you win clarity, and clarity is better than forced attachment. Here's the final image I want you to hold. Imagine holding sand in your hand. Clench your fist, and it slips through your fingers. Open your palm, and most of it stays. The goal was never to squeeze harder. The goal was to hold with control. That's the shift. Not aggressive, not passive, not manipulative, just steady. And steady wins more than force ever will.